Hey, Marc, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Jay, how's it going?
Good, good, very good. This year's been different. It's been odd. It's not slowing down. It's not changing, but it has given us time to pick up a different hobby, do something to pass the time, maybe make it reading, hiking, whatever it is to kind of alleviate our minds from how weird this year has been. What have you done? One thing, five things, doesn't matter. What have you done to kind of pass the time during this year?
I don't know if it's been a new hobby as much as I've taken much more frequent walks in my neighborhood with my wife and kids and my dog, multiple times a day, sometimes, first thing in the morning, sometimes late at night, or not late at night, but early evening. I don't know, started to binge watch Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, not really my choice, but was it Amazon? My wife picked that one. So watched a lot of old games, I don't know, just those kind of things that when you can't go out and about doing what you normally do in life, you learn to adjust.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Are you normally a binge watch kind of guy, or is this something that was specific for this time period?
No, what I should be doing is catching up on my Showtime Billions, which I'm only on like season 3, I think it is.
Okay.
So I watched a few of those. I need to do more.
Okay, nice, nice. I like it. I like it. I've tried to get out and go hiking a little bit. I do hike every now and then, but here in Indiana where I live, the state parks, the governor left them open, and it was free admission. So it's like if you want to drive to a state park and you want to get out, you can. And the parks weren't that full at all. A lot of people were doing what they were suggested to do, which is stay home. So it's kind of nice to get outside, enjoy nature, and at the same time be a little active as well. And that trend's probably going to continue the rest of the year into next year because I do like nature. And it's kind of weird how we're so used to being so busy that when we get this time to sit back and relax, we find odd things or things that we didn't expect to do, Marc, to kind of pass the time, keep a smile on our face in what has been a crazy, crazy year.
Yeah, I know the parks around here are open and probably pretty busy. Trying to find a spot where it's not too crowded. Yeah, it's a good time to get with nature. Until you can start hitting downtowns and big festivals and that kind of thing again.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Not sure when that'll be. Hopefully, it's sooner rather than later. Before we get to the team that you cover on a regular basis, when did you know? When did you have the sense that you wanted to be a sports writer?
Well, that's a good question. I was in journalism class in high school back. I grew up in Maryland, and I remember a couple of things. Regarding sports writing, I had the ability to go meet with Abe Pullen, who was the owner of the Washington Bullets back then. I don't remember exactly what the connection was, but I remember being a young budding sports writer, and he gave me time. And I remember the NBA championship trophy in his office. They won it in 1977, I think it was, 78
Okay.
maybe, was nearby. I went to the University of Maryland. I had a chance to interview a basketball player back then named Ernie Graham.
Okay.
This is when I was in high school. And then my journalism class in high school, we took a summer trip to the University of South Carolina, which is kind of far from Maryland. But I remember growing up in Maryland, where the stadiums, Byrd Stadium at Maryland was, 50,000-ish maybe, going down to the southeast and seeing Williams-Brice Stadium on the horizon, and the huge, it kind of is larger than life, which is pretty much what the stadiums are like all over the SEC. But that was my first taste, kind of how big SEC football was. I just grew up a big sports fan and got into it starting in high school.
Nice, nice, nice. I like hearing people's stories, people's backstories about how they get into it or when they knew. I interviewed one guy. He lives in Cincinnati and he lives in Dayton, but he does Cincinnati and Dayton stuff for his podcast, does some play-by-play stuff. And he was like, he didn't get into it. I think it was late into high school, or I think it may have been college. And he was like, I don't know. It's out of nowhere, this urge to work in sports. It wasn't there before, but now that he's in it, he can't get out. I mean, not that he wants to get out. He loves what he does, but everyone's story is different. And it's interesting that you got to interview that player back then. Was that nerve-wracking?
A little bit. It was in a big, high-rise dorm, which I went to the University of Maryland. I think I ended up living there. I know which dorm I lived in my freshman year, and it might have been the same place where Ernie Graham was living then. It was probably like 15 floors high, and it overlooked the stadium. It was close by the stadium. So, it was pretty, nerve-wracking, I think, back then. But I think he was pretty nice to the young kid who came to visit him.
Sure hope so. Sure hope so. You're still talking about it in a good sense, so there's a smile on your face as you're bringing it up. After last season, let's go back to last season with Georgia, and then work to this year. After last year, what would you say was kind of the temperature, or what was kind of the outlook or the reflection, what was the reflection of the team, or your reflection of the team after the end of last season?
Pretty much what it is under Kirby Smart, which is if you're not in the college football playoff, I think the expectation now is that you need to move some pieces around. You need to figure out why you're not living up to the goal of winning a national championship. And obviously 2017, when they pretty much had the thing wrapped up or close to it seemingly until the second and 26 touchdown pass. Things are always looking to what we can do, not being comfortable. And the offense was a big question last year for Georgia. People were wondering what would happen, how fast would things change? Would James Coley switch up the offense, or would Kirby Smart switch up the offensive coordinator and the play caller? And James Coley got demoted, Todd Monken got hired, and James Coley eventually moved on to Texas A&M. So the offense was the thing to watch this offseason, and there's a lot of anticipation if and when the season gets going, what that's going to look like for Georgia.
Absolutely. You kind of hit it at something I was going to hit right now, which is the schedule. I know the SEC just came out. I believe it's a conference only, or it's a conference 10+1 or 9+1. I forget it. I've been doing so many notes for all the Power Fives. Sometimes they get jumbled up. But what have you been hearing that the schedule will possibly look like? Will it be all division and just play just a round robin style there? Will it be cross matchups? What will the schedule kind of look like for the upcoming season?
Yeah, so they settled on a 10-game all-conference schedule. The ACC went to the one non-conference along with their conference schedule, and so there was a thought that maybe some of these really big rivalries, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Clemson, South Carolina, could stay on the schedule, but the SEC didn't match that plan. They're only doing conferences, and so it's actually going to be more SEC West opponents than usual. Usually you have two, which this year would have been Auburn as the annual crossover team, and then Alabama. So we're waiting to find out which two other SEC West teams are going to join the schedule, whether it's Arkansas, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, or LSU. They're going to get two of them, and we'll see how that plays out. It should be in the next few days, anticipating what that's going to look like, and how they're going to probably reshuffle the schedule. Georgia was supposed to open with Alabama. I mean, that still could be the season opening game, but we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was doing some last-minute notes putting down, and I did see that with the website that I was at, it did say it was Georgia, Alabama week 1, but I do believe the date for that one on the site that I was on was September 19th. And I believe that the season doesn't start for the SEC until September 26th, I believe.
Yeah.
So that would shake things up just a tad. That would be a great opener, not just for both teams there, but for fans like myself that get to watch a great game of the first game of that conference. I know some conferences may start earlier. I think the Big Ten may start September 26th, which is in the area that I currently live in. But it's interesting, but it's also exciting because we get to see more SEC football, the best conference, the most competitive conference. Even if Arkansas, you have your Vanderbilts. Yeah, they're not the best schools, but if you put them against other conferences, they do put up a very good fight. And I'm kind of excited to see more SEC football and how the SEC beats up on itself and then who actually comes out on top.
Yeah, I don't think many fans are upset about East Tennessee State and Louisiana Monroe falling off the Georgia schedule. These are the kind of games that fans don't want to pay money to see. They want to see more big-time, games. And give credit to Georgia. They've been ramping up their non-conference schedule. They were going to play Virginia to start the season, which when they scheduled it didn't sound like a great game, but Virginia, played in the ACC championship game last year. Alabama is going to be interesting. Georgia hadn't played in Tuscaloosa since 2007, and obviously with Kirby Smart coming from Alabama and the games they've had in the last couple of years with a lot riding on it, it's really become a pretty big deal whenever they get together. And Georgia's still chasing Alabama to a large extent. But Georgia's going to go there and presumably only have to face 20,000-ish fans in the stands, maybe, or maybe it's a little bit more than that. Who knows how that's going to play out? But it's not going to be your typical trip to Tuscaloosa.
No. But but a few fans, for a lot of people, is better than absolutely nothing. We
Sure.
see some sports now with nothing. Well, a lot of major sports, NBA, NHL, NBA, all the sports. I don't think anybody's really right now outside of NASCAR and then the Indianapolis 500 up here in Indianapolis, the IndyCar, that are going to have a certain amount of fans there. But for the most part, it's going to be 20-25% maybe-ish fans, your season ticket holders, which it's going to be. To me, that's better than nothing. The NBA I'm getting more used to. watching it with just the people on the screen behind the players. It's a nice touch. It's a nice added flavor to the game. But yeah, I think 20-25%, and I know if they opened it up to more with the way the SEC fans are down there in the South, more would actually join. For those, I've never been to an SEC game. Take that back. I went to a Missouri game, but I told one of my buddies as an Auburn fan, he's like, no, Jay, that's not real SEC. You don't count that at all. For those that have not been down to the heart of the South where SEC country was born and bred, how would you describe SEC football?
It's I think I might have used the word earlier. It's pretty much like a festival. It's a nonstop full day party. Missouri, you're right. Missouri and Kentucky are probably more on the outskirts of what an SEC experience is like. There's nothing like a game day in Baton Rouge. Auburn, even South Carolina, which doesn't have a great football history in terms of going to a lot of bowl games and winning championships. They have a really dedicated fan base that still shows up, and it's a different experience. Maybe on the NFL level, I don't know if you'd say the Packers or something like that has that kind of tailgating outside. I'm not familiar what exactly the NFL scene looks like outside the stadium, but in the SEC, it's like none other. It'll certainly be different. There's debate whether there'll be any tailgating outside games. If schools are going to sanction, they're going to allow it. They don't want, obviously, mass gatherings, except for maybe the fans that they've invited to actually attend the games, whatever number that turns out to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned a party, and I know Georgia fans, they were rejoicing. They were excited when Jamie Newman decided to go down to Athens and finish off his college career, going from Jake Fromm. A lot of people were saying, why did you choose Jake Fromm over Jacob Eason? Or excuse me, Jacob Eason left, and then Justin Fields left, and they had their own reasons for leaving, and they played well. Washington would for one, and then Ohio State for the other. They played well in their new spot, but Jake Fromm has been gone. I believe, was he 3 years or 4 years? I forget how long Fromm was there.
3-year starter. Yeah.
Okay.
From freshman year to his junior year.
Okay. 3-year starter. He's gone, went to the NFL, and then Jamie Newman comes in. And like I mentioned, the party aspect, you mentioned it there when describing the game day experience for SEC football teams. I'm sure a lot of fans were excited, having somewhat of a party in their home or their apartment, wherever they are, knowing that we get a different style of quarterback, a guy that can throw the ball and a guy that can move. I do believe he threw for 2,800 yards last year, ran for over 500, 6 rushing touchdowns, 26 passing touchdowns. So he can do a little bit of it all. And those 500 rushing yards, it was a little over 500. It was 180 rushes. So he's not afraid to throw the rock. He's not afraid to run the ball. And I am sure that Kirby Smart's like, yes, we're not just have a guy that can throw the ball. We have a guy that can run. And there's going to be some wrinkles with the offense that will make Georgia football a whole lot more exciting to watch.
Yeah, definitely. Jamie Newman was pretty much the hottest quarterback on the transfer market. And in Georgia, it was a pretty fast transition when Jake Fromm, made the announcement to go pro, that this guy was out there. He wanted to come to Georgia. They needed a starting quarterback. And he brought him a different dimension. Now, Wake Forest has a very unique offense. The way they ran him, kind of would take the ball and put it in the belly of the running back, and he'd run, into the line of scrimmage, or just use his physical ability to carry the ball. And I'm not sure exactly. We haven't seen, obviously. There was no spring practice at Georgia. How is Todd Monken going to dial it up with Jamie Newman? Will he be more of a drop back guy and scramble, or certainly there'll be design runs, but I wouldn't anticipate the amount of running he did that he'll need to do that, just because of the amount of talent around him at the running back position. Georgia recruited very well this offseason at tight end and wide receiver. They have George Pickens coming back. So there's a lot more talent around him in an offensive line that, while they took a lot of departures this past season with a couple of first-round draft picks that went in the NFL draft on the offensive line at tackle, they still have recruited very well, have some 5-stars there, ready to step up. And, Newman's he's probably the clear favorite, but they also brought in JT Daniels as a late May, another transfer who got automatic eligibility already from the NCAA. So certainly there's a lot of quarterback options for Kirby Smart, and probably won't be if one of these guys has a rough quarter or two, you have a good option on the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting how that dynamic is that you just described. If he has a bad quarter or two, and we mentioned it earlier, the Georgia National Championship game a couple years ago when Jalen Hurts got pulled, Tua came in, and the rest is history, 2nd and 26. And I would not like that way. If I'm a coach, it's great to have that aspect there where you have 2 quarterbacks there that you can trust. But at the same time, if you make the wrong call at the wrong time, it could be 2nd and 26, you win the national championship, or it could be you can just get blown out because you pull the rope, you pull a guy, and it's just a bad move, wrong time. You have to be very, very sensitive about that situation. How do you expect that to go? Do you expect the possible pulling in the regular season or in a conference championship game if one of the two is not playing well? Or you expect just Jamie Newman to ride this whole thing out the whole season?
It's kind of an unknown because Kirby Smart hasn't really had the option. I'd say the comfort level with two guys that have already been starters in a Power 5 program, like the two guys we talked about, Newman and Daniels. Now, certainly Justin Fields as a true freshman, he had tons of talent around him, didn't have the game reps, and was Kirby Smart and the offensive coordinator at the time. Were they Jim Chaney? Were they a little gun shy of making the move and worrying about what it would do to the locker room? They certainly got Justin Fields into the game, at certain times in certain packages, but in terms of giving him the reins of the offense and letting him have the full package, not necessarily. So I do think that it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, JT Daniels is coming off a knee surgery that knocked him out all of last season after the opener. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes back and where he is physically. But I do think that Kirby would be more willing to make a move. Last year, Jake Fromm certainly had many, I wouldn't say many, but a few games where he just didn't have it. He didn't have, whether it was the elements or whether it was his accuracy. And if he had a quality backup, a proven backup right behind him, there were certainly people ready to see Jake, maybe take a series off. And I think this year you'll be more apt to make that move.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The guy that is behind – will be behind Jamie Newman, Jameer Wright. He is coming. Georgia has had a list of great running backs and really good running backs over the past few years. DeAndre Swift, who just left, and you go back to Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and Todd Gurley, all guys that were great running backs. I mean, I was going back to the list, and I'm thinking, wow, I think this goes back to like 2013 as far as like how many really, really, really good or elite running backs they have had down there. Will Jameer Wright be the next one in that line in a list of really good running backs at Georgia?
He certainly has the pedigree, the potential, and showed really good flashes at the end of last season in the Sugar Bowl when Swift, was very limited, as well as in the SEC championship game, he had a shoulder injury. To a certain extent, he might have been wanting to protect his NFL stock and not want to have a significant injury, but he also was very banged up. White was just as big time, maybe even more so, coming out of North Carolina. Than your Todd Gurley's, your Nick Chubb's, your Sony Michel's, but he had a second ACL injury covering a punt in practice, or maybe it was a kickoff. I can't remember which one. It was definitely a special teams coverage thing, a non-contact situation that knocked him out his entire freshman season. And last year, usually they say that the year coming back off a knee injury is not as productive as the year after. So we're 2 years removed from that one, and certainly he's not the only one. James Cook is a running back that has the ability to line up in the slot, can make plays in the passing game, and under this Todd Monken offense, certainly is the kind of player that you would think would be able to thrive in it. And they have other guys, Kenny McIntosh, another guy that 4-star out of Florida. So Zamir is going to be probably the featured back, but I think there'll be a lot of, at Georgia, they definitely spread the wealth, as you saw with Sony and Nick. I think it'll be the same thing this year.
They do. And the guys that are going to be blocking for those two guys, you just talked about White and Cook. You mentioned earlier they lost a couple guys via the draft, and there were some holes in the offensive line. How are they going to fill in those holes to keep the Georgia offensive line at a way and playing at a level that can be elite, that will be elite, to make sure the receivers get the ball when they need to, Newman stays upright, and the running backs can get the yards that they need to get?
Well, Jamari Sawyer is probably the guy to watch on this offensive line. He'll be a junior now. It was a 5-star that came in from the same high school that Andrew Thomas is from.
Right.
They played together there. He's probably going to be at one of the tackle spots, maybe left tackle. NFL potential for this guy as well. Ben Cleveland is a guy that's been around now. He's a redshirt senior, huge, 340-some pound guy, has been around, can plug him in at guard. And Georgia had Cade Mays last year as kind of the linchpin guy that can play inside at guard, and he transferred out to Tennessee. So Cleveland, who missed the Sugar Bowl, he had an academic issue. He'll be one of the more experienced guys in the offensive line. And then Trey Hill at center is another guy with NFL potential. Georgia seems to turn out guys at that position between David Andrews, Lamont Galliard, and now probably Trey Hill pretty soon as well. And then Broderick Jones came in as he's the next 5-star offensive lineman that will be able to plug in. He had an off-season injury so we'll see how that keeps him out of practices. But he could be a starter or tackle right away, just like Thomas was back in 2017.
That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. They keep bringing in young talent. They keep producing them and helping them groom and mature at their position. And it's just fun to see guys that do that, guys that come in hot, come in highly touted 4 or 5-star recruits, and then with the coaching staff just able to help them be the best player that they can be. And I'm excited to see the Georgia offense, but then the Georgia defense as well. They bring back a lot of really good guys. I can't pronounce this guy's last name, Aziz. He led the team in sacks. You're smiling because I was watching, I think it was a Georgia-Auburn game before we started recording this, and then Brad Nessler said it with ease, no stutter, no nothing. And I looked at it down on my paper. I said, I'm not even going to try it. But he led the team in sacks. Richard LeCount, I believe, led the team in interceptions and fumble recoveries. So they have some guys coming back that played well last year, that you know who they are. And it's kind of going to be, to me, it's possibly going to be once again the same thing. Really good defense. I love that Notre Dame game with how physical that game was. And I am hoping we see that again from the defense this upcoming year. What would you say we can expect from the Georgia defense here in the fall?
A lot of what you saw last year. They didn't take too many losses. They have some of their stud guys back. Aziz Ojulari, as you mentioned. I think he's only a redshirt sophomore, but he redshirted back in their first Sugar Bowl season in 2018 when they went to back-to-back, and he was kind of a guy you heard a lot about, and was coming off an injury as well, and he's definitely a guy, one of many that can really bring the pressure. LeCount is one of many experienced guys that they have back in the secondary. He could have been an NFL guy, and certainly manning stuff back there and physical presence, and they have a lot of options at cornerback with Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes, Dominique Stevenson, DJ Daniels. There's just a lot of these guys you're going to see in NFL camps in the years to come, and early round or mid-round draft picks. Just a lot of experienced options. Jordan Davis is a big wide body in the middle that really can smother guys in the run game. They didn't lose much, and they're the top scoring defense coming back, nationally. So, if the offense can just give them a little bit more, it looks very impressive what they can bring back on defense. Certainly,
I agree. I would agree with that. Who would you say would be your X factor with the defense?
I'm going to mention Nakobe Dean, who came out of Mississippi as the next big 5-star speedy inside linebacker. Roquan Smith drew the comparisons. So that was the name you heard about with him, just naturally because Smith was such a dominant presence. And maybe also a Nolan Smith, who was the number 1 guy in the 247 recruiting rankings the year before last. And at Georgia, these guys, they're in there with 30 some other guys sharing snaps. Even if you have the best all-out recruiting pedigree, they're going to just find kind of a role for you to take advantage of your skill set and a niche for you. And now as they progress and become sophomores, I look for more from those 2 guys in particular.
Good deal. This has been fun, Mark. I'll try to keep it short this morning. Would you have any lasting comments about either football coming up in the fall, Georgia, something that's not sports related you would like to add? Anything like your last comment before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, it's just going to be an exciting. Well, I don't know if exciting is the word. It's going to be a mysterious weeks ahead because we don't know. Georgia and the SEC are anticipating a 10-game schedule, and as we've seen with Florida, or rather Miami Marlins, the Philadelphia Phillies, the St. Louis Cardinals in MLB, you don't know what kind of disruptions the season's going to have. You don't know, if the season's even going to get off the ground. Just a lot of uncertainty. A lot of these guys we mentioned are going to have decisions to make. If there isn't a season, are they going to protect their NFL futures? And if a college football is pushed to the spring, do they want to get ready for the NFL? Like you're already seeing the guy at Virginia Tech opt out of this season, and you'll see other guys like that as well. It'll be unlike anything we've ever seen in college football this year, because I don't think any of us were around in 1918 when the last pandemic was. So, I guess buckle up and just get ready for, not the norm, and, what you expected college football to be. It'll look different, as you mentioned, whether you'll see fans to show up, plastered on the seats in a video graphic to fill it up like they're doing in MLB, or, what it's going to look like. So we'll just have to just check out day by day, hour by hour to see how things are changing.
Yeah, day by day, hour by hour, things change so much. It's a very, very, very fluid situation. Marc, thank you so much. Taking time out of your day this Tuesday morning to come here on the podcast. Hopefully look to have you here down the road. Hoping that we get football here in the fall. I know it's a possibility that we don't have it, but I really, really hope we get some type of football here in the fall.
All right, Jay, good to be with you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.